All right, man. Got your sprinklers going. Life is good.
Got the sprinklers going. Life is back and just where it should be. And we're back here just as we should be. It's June 6th, 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast, and this is episode 775.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, I was going to tell you off air, but I thought I'd save this sprinkler story for...
Okay, for live and in color.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I used to be I guess it was the stadium operations manager for the Indianapolis Indians, and that was a AAA baseball team back in the day, or it still is. But
say that again. You were the what?
I was the stadium operations manager.
Stadium operations manager.
Oh yeah.
Is that like when the secretary calls themselves like the lead director of First Impressions? Is that an overinflated title, or was that like the legit title they gave you?
I was in charge of the field, the grass, the whole
part of the baseball stadium.
And then if a seat broke, that was in my realm, or if like lights went out, so no, it was a legit title, but I was well underpaid for that job. But back in the day, the Indianapolis Indians played at an old Busch Stadium, and we didn't have a sprinkler system. Think about that one for a baseball field.
What?
Yeah. So you were talking about lugging.
The dirt is just as important as water in the grass in those things.
Oh, I know. It was brutal, man. I had these like big, they weren't like fire hose. Well, maybe they were. They're heavy, thick hoses that we had to drag all over the field. And I had a compass, like you would draw out with, and I would like practice overlapping. I had all these systems that I used, but anyway, yeah, that was a pain, but it's for keeping, because the baseball field, you got to have that thing looking pristine.
Got to have it pristine. Everybody sees it. It's the first impression. Everybody looks at it, I'm like, man, I want to have grass like that, and I want to have a field like that. It is Field of Dreams. But yeah, we were talking off air about some irrigations. I mean, moving from Tennessee to here, I never had like a sprinkler system in my life. And the house we bought here had one, and I've never known more luxury than to have your sprinklers automatically come on. I think it's the most fantastic thing in the world. So, we were talking a little bit about that off air. It's your first time tuning in today. Welcome. You didn't just come here for Home Depot landscaping and grass tips. You came here for the podcast. So we appreciate you tuning in today. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Time is very valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. And for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also like to talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes looking for their first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between, if all over the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them and Training Peaks emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also like to utilize our Facebook group, and you can search that Crushing Iron Group. Answer multiple questions and let's right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, solid resource in a sport that has been way overcomplicated and has become way too confusing. It is a solid, safe, actionable space to get great information from seasoned veterans who have made all the mistakes that you don't want to make, and they're available to answer your questions. So don't be a lurker, be a participant. I like to go in there at least, once every 3 to 5 weeks, do a little bit of a Q&A to the pulse of the community, do our best to answer all those questions in due time. And that is it. We have no sponsors. We have no ads, but we do have a very important agenda, and that's to do our best to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah, and I think I would like to add to that, because we were talking about this before the podcast too, but the range of athletes that we coach and what they do in their normal everyday lives, from secret government agencies to farmers to single moms and single dads, podium people at big Ironman races, back of the pack race, and we cover the gamut, man. So that's what, you've often referred to it as a podcast about triathlon. How do you call it? A triathlon related podcast.
Podcast. Yeah,
so we cover the bases here, man, just so you know. We're not going to always be dialed into statistics and metrics.
Yeah. I mean, but listen, it's triathlon, it's the sport itself is a giant melting pot. And I think we do, this won't be our topic for today, but if it is, who knows? We're just going to roll with it. Triathlon is a giant melting pot. And it takes every single kind of athlete. And I remember one of the very first races I ever did I thought that these guys next to me were going to absolutely smoke me because they were ripped and chiseled and they just looked like elite. And then I remember just waxing them. And I also vividly remember, renting, race wheels in like the early 2000s to do a race on my tri bike and just getting blown apart by like a 60-year-old dude on a road bike with training wheels. Like it legit takes all kinds. And there is and we come from every walk of life to triathlon. I think that sometimes that we forget about this. Like, and it oftentimes reminds me of like I think it was the first night that I was in treatment, and I was sitting around this campfire with a bunch of different, like just total strangers, right? So I went to treatment. I spent the first night in like the detox unit. And then there was an opening in the house I was going to go to. It's like me and I think it was 14 to 16 guys. Can't remember the exact number. So the first night there, I'm moving in the house, total strangers. I'm at this like random ass place in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. It's pitch black out, sitting next to around a campfire with, again, 14 to 16 total strangers talking about things. They kind of go through going through a meeting. And there was a guy there that had come in like the day before. And he kept trying to say things like, this doesn't apply to me. This doesn't apply to me. Cause he was interesting because he was a preacher, but he was there for being an alcoholic. I mean, he was the same as the rest. And he kept saying different things like, I'm not like that. That's not like me. I'm different. And this guy, an RA, so resident assistant, had been there. And he just says, listen, man, you're not special. And what he meant by that was that you're just like the rest of us. You could be a preacher. You could be a king. You could be a peasant. If you got this disease, you're not anything special. We're all the same. And you're going to have to address it like the rest of us. You're not going to address being an alcoholic differently because you're a preacher or because you're a CEO or because you're a housewife or because you are 18 years old or because you're a 7-year-old. The path, right? And the path to success is the exact same for all of us. It might look different, but the things you have to do to get there are all the same. So let's just stop acting like you're special. I remember I heard that and I was like, fuck, I'm sitting there thinking like, we all think we're special, but we're all the same. And that's why I think like when you talk about, and that's the same thing. It was like the house I was in was a total melting pot. So I was in my early 30s. You had guys in there that were, it was my first trip, and you had guys in there that were 18, 19 years old who had been to rehab 2 or 3 times already. You had guys in there in their late 60s, 70s, successful, like retired, like they don't do anything else in life, which I totally admired, by the way, that they were giving it a shot that late in life, because I'm not sure I would have done that. Like if I had been drinking that long and I was retired and had nothing, I'd probably just been going out and doing my thing. And so everyone in between from every walk of life, people who had tons of money, people who had no money, it was just total melting pot. But we all kind of came together, again, from every state, every walk of life, you name it. But we'd all come together every night. We'd play spades, we'd play cards. We had this one common denominator, which was we were alcoholic and we were struggling and we were there for a reason. We wanted to get better. Nothing else mattered. Not your political belief, which nobody really cared about back then, or, anything else. It was just, you were all there for kind of for one purpose, and that was to improve your life, right? And at that point, it was improve your life by not drinking again. And I'll never forget that. And I also think it's so true in the sport of triathlon, in that it is a giant melting pot. You have people from every walk of life. You got people probably weighing 90 pounds upwards to 400 pounds. You got men, you got women, you got people, 84, 85. I mean, one of our athletes is 85 years old. You got athletes doing their first, Ironman in high school. You have everyone in between. You got all different kinds of jobs. You got all different kinds. You got a white picket fence and 2 kids. And then you got, struggling single mom with 5 kids and a deadbeat dad. You got single dads. You got people, people with trauma. You got people trying to try to get on top of the podium at Kona. You get people trying to lose weight. You got people trying to find their way. You got people trying to take their life back. You get people just trying to try, right? Trying to figure out what they want to do with their life. People who played college sports, people who have never played a sport in their entire life ever. And that's just like a drop in the bucket of like examples that I could give you of really people we work with. Like, and I think that's like a common question you and I get a lot when people come in like, hey, I don't feel like I deserve coaching, or I don't feel like I deserve to have you guys coach because I'm not that fast. I'm like, listen, like, I think the best coaches in the world should work with all kinds of athletes because I think it keeps you on your toes. It's definitely harder, but it keeps you thinking about different scenarios and how they affect different people. And it is, I think that's the beauty of the sport. I think it doesn't oftentimes get the highlight that I think it gets, which is why you think a lot of people really enjoy the feel of like trail races, or, back in the day when Scherer was really popular, or, a lot of people are doing gravel races now, as it kind of has, to me, it's not a grassroots mentality, right? Because it's still corporate, right? You look at Unbound, which is like 75 minutes from my house. It's a big Lifetime Garmin event. Like, that's 2 giant corporations, right? Worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But the grassroots thing that people talk about is that we all kind of feel like we're part of the same tribe, and we're there and we're encouraging each other, and we know we all come from different walks of life, and we're just trying to figure this shit out. And we're just trying to get better.
Yep.
And I think that's just that's a huge piece of the sport that I think oftentimes doesn't get highlighted because it's so focused on, the podcasts that have, their triathlon podcasts, like they don't interview random, age grouper, Jennifer from, Nebraska, who's a stay-at-home mom with, 3 kids and manages this, and this, but she's still making it. She's still super successful. And it's all about professionals or coaches or scientists. And it's like, it's not that relatable, but I think we crave things that are relatable and trying to figure out, like, that's why you find people falling in love, I think, with athletes like Chelsea Sodaro when she won Ironman World Championships as a mom, or Jackie Herring, who just won her first Ironman event since 2015 in Ironman Wisconsin. She's got 2 kids, lives in Wisconsin. I mean, and just blew, like, I think it's the fastest American mom time, or whatever you want to call it. Like, that's why we kind of find ourselves, I think, cheering more for people. At least I do. Because I'm like, I can relate to that. I can't relate to Christian Blumenfeld, who lives and breathes triathlon and has, 17 sensors on his body every time he goes out and runs. Like the tech I get is like, do I want to use my own spit to get my heart rate monitor wet to go out and use? Or do I really want to go dip underneath the faucet? Because let's be honest, is there anything colder than a newly wet heart rate monitor going on your chest? No, it's freaking freezing. So like that's as tech as I get. So I like things that are relatable. I like things that make triathlon feel like everyone's welcome. But that also means that, as coaches and as athletes, like, there's also a billion opportunities out there to be successful, but also to kind of fall in that trap of comparing yourself to other people. And I'll be honest, I don't have any idea how we got here, but I'm enjoying the conversation so far.
Yeah. Well, a lot of what you're saying there, especially back to your time in treatment, really, this is endurance sports in general, I feel like, are sports where talent isn't necessarily required. You can have the brightest minds in the world sitting in sharing a room with you back in recovery, but that doesn't give them shit, necessarily. They got to do the work, right? And that's kind of how I look at endurance sports, is that, you can always see somebody that maybe came from an athletic background or whatever, but if they can't hang on, they're just going to get toasted by somebody who works hard and puts their mind to it. And I'm always talking about athletes, and they're saying, I just got through that. And I was like, that's the muscle you got to keep building, because it's, especially long course, and we talk about that mostly 70.3 fulls and things like that, but it's about strength and and ability to get through those moments and everything. And I think those are things you got to work on every day. We can kind of spin this into what I was talking about a little bit because, setbacks, right? We all have them, it can be anything and there's always something going on. That was the one thing I learned about endurance sports that, I played like baseball and shit when I was growing up, but when I started running and because I had never really done it and I was kind of amazed by how much I hurt all the time. Like we've talked about it before, especially at the beginning of a run, even if you're deep in training and in excellent shape for endurance races, that first mile or two can really be a grinder at times. There's always little niggles that pop up and things like that and whatever. And I was telling you before the cast that, I'm training for this horribly hilly bike race in Madison next weekend. And so I got the bright idea to start get on my fat tire bike and just bust up some hills near me, short hills, but just kind of work on that grind a little bit. And I completely like strained my back on the first one of them. It was just bogus. And of course I kept trying to go through it, but then I've just been really sore. But I guess what I'm saying is that sometimes I've really tried, I've tried to look at this as like a good thing somehow. So I've been trying to spin it in a positive in the sense of, okay, this is teaching me something. And so I've been kind of working on figuring out ways to make my, hip flexor stronger and my glutes stronger and things like that, just as a comeback. I've been able to navigate the pain, but I'm still working through it. But I guess my point is that you can look for clues, and if something's bothering you, and I think it's almost a sign always that there's some kind of muscle group that's weaker, and that particular group that hurts is taking over the load for you. So, I just think it's always the first reaction is to go like stretch that area out. And I just think that's probably the worst thing you can do. I think you need to work on, it's an opportunity to start working on areas that might benefit you a hell of a lot more in the long run. But, obviously injuries, and we can't, when we deal with this and we talk about this, like if there's real injuries going on, we can't say anything. But I think a lot of times there's opportunity to try and build strength and sort of get off of the area that you're struggling with and really think about other spots that might be able to take up some of that load and take some pressure off of what hurts.
I mean, to me, that's like when we go through, because I was talking to an athlete, you mentioned this before we went live today, and then I had an athlete call earlier today who is training for Lake Placid and has been having some kind of like, some hip and leg issues, and went to finally just, going to getting x-rays, MRIs. And, as we get older, like, especially if you've been playing sports for a long period of time, I think we've all got these kind of like underlying niggles, right, that are below the surface that aren't really accentuated because we're not doing anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. On a day-to-day basis, like I have no problem with my elbow. Zero. I could swim 4,500, fine. Hop on the bike in aero position 4 hours, fine. I go play tennis and I got to ice it for like 2 days.
Yeah.
Because it just really it really, really hurts. So they have to be careful with it. And so I think, so he has like, he said, we were talking about, I said, listen, man, I've worked with athletes that, I've seen it all. We can either get you to start line, or we can postpone and kind of rework things. So anyway, he had an issue from sports, before a triathlon that just now kind of like rearing its ugly head again. And now we have to address it because of the training load. And then we got to make decisions. Do you do like Placid, or do you push it off and do a race later this year? My opinion is like, we push, there's total health is the best. And like, there's no reason to rush things. And as I was listening to you talk about, the opportunities that we have to navigate, and that's why that's why I love the beauty of triathlon is that you've always got options. Unless you suffer like a severe injury, outside of maybe like laying in bed for a week or whatever it is, like whatever your limitation is, you can do one of the three. Like you can swim, you can bike, or you can run. Like you can usually do one of the three. Rarely ever for an extended period of time is somebody going to say, or you going to say, I can't do anything. Now, your foot's hurting, you're afraid of a stress fracture, you can bike and swim. Shoulders bothering you when you swim, you can bike and run. You got a saddle sore, you can run and swim. Like we got options, right? And so I think like and this is the time of year where I think it's like the most common for athletes to have niggles pop up because one of two reasons happen. One, you probably train November, December, all the way through now, and you've been training a ton, you got a race coming up, and you have these niggles popping up, and you're like, God, I need to take off. What do I do? How do I adjust? Do I need to be creative? Is this a setback or just an opportunity to find progress in a different area? Or the other on the flip side, you got people who have, probably done nothing, December, January, February, March, April, now we're through May. Now they feel behind the 8 ball, and now they want to hit it hard because they got to make up for lost time, even though that's impossible. You cannot make up for lost time. You cannot make up lost fitness. You can just earn the fitness back in the right trajectory, doing the right things, and it'll happen over the right time. But when you rush things, bad things happen. That's just a consequence. And so right now what you're seeing is and that's kind of what I believe niggles and things like that are consequences of things we didn't do consequences of poor decisions made prior. And I feel the exact same way about people who say that they feel like they're overtrained. Well, the reality is you're probably not. You're under recovered. Huge difference, right? Overtraining means you're recovering a lot, but you're doing so much volume that you're run down. You can't get your heart rate up. Your legs are smashed. You're not sleeping very well. All these things. That's overtrained. Under recovered, which is what a lot of people do is, like we were commenting earlier today, like, an athlete went out for a late afternoon, evening run yesterday in the heat on purpose and woke up today, did a bike ride super early, probably underfueled and balked. Okay. So not overtrained. The bike ride wasn't too hard. You were underfueled. So huge difference, right? So that was the consequence. The consequence was you bonked, right? The consequence of not taking care of your body, not doing yoga, not doing mobility, doing a workout and immediately going and sitting in a chair, right, for 8 hours, which I believe being sedentary is the cause of like 90% of niggles. And that's how these things pop up, right? Or you had, you haven't had a bike fit in 5 years. All right. Probably something that we should, we should address. So again, niggles and stuff like that are usually just a consequence from prior decisions either not made or poor decisions made. Same thing with so when these things like that happen, you have to address them, and it's an opportunity to address them, right? Do you decide to sit on the shelf and sit on your ass and just, make another bad choice? Or do you want to get creative and maybe it's time for a swim block? Maybe it's time for, because again, dude, we say this a ton, I know, but fitness is fitness. Yes, there are small changes in technique, right, and things like that, but fitness is fitness. And yes, there are certain types of fitness that you have to have, but you generally, like, when I step on the tennis court and I'll play with guys that probably play like 5-6 times a week, at least that. And I might play once or twice. And so you'd think, oh, well, once you step on the tennis court, like, you need tennis shape. I'm in better shape than every one of them every time. You run after ball. They are huffing and puffing like it's, last night I was playing, and you're going to love this, dude. I didn't start playing until 8 o'clock last night.
I thought you were going to quit that shit.
I know. It's the only time I can make it work. Hayden in a baseball game last night. 4-for-4, by the way. He's on fire right now. And
polo? We had the polo on?
What'd you say?
Were you wearing the polo? That's what I want to know.
No, I don't wear the polo. And I'm still staunchly against owning a bag. I'm the only guy that doesn't own a tent. I'll walk in with a towel around my neck. I'm holding my shoes and my socks in them that I may or may not have already played in earlier that week.
Racket cover?
No racket covers, just holding my 2 rackets in my hand. I'm just trying to stay strong, man. But anyway, so fitness is fitness. So you can use this opportunity to focus on one thing and still get better. And I think that like niggles and injuries and how they pop up in triathlon is also very comparable to how we got in the sport in the first place. Like a lot of people that got into the sport, they didn't get into it because life was super dandy. Life was in order. Life was perfect. There were no obstacles. You weren't looking for anything. You already had something that you love. So you were just trying to, do whatever. Not the case. You were probably looking for something. You needed something, or something was hard. You needed to find a way to stay sane, right? There's another reason people come to triathlon, especially a reason some people like try. I mean, we saw our biggest increase in athletes during COVID when there was no races, but people needed the structure. They needed the support. They needed the accountability. They needed to feel like they had some control over our lives. And I think that's very similar to how we just choose to navigate injuries. Do we choose to sit on the sidelines, or do we try to find creative and opportunistic ways to still get better? And a lot of us, that's why we chose triathlon. Like I know for me, I got into it because I was so out of shape, and for me, I was very overweight, and I was drinking a ton, and I was like, I needed some kind of a life change. I needed to change things. I needed to make a very quick change in direction. So I got into sport. Same thing happens when something comes up, like you said, like your back hurts. Well, there's still opportunities to get better. You just have to think more in order to do it. But I also think it provides a huge opportunity to just to be more flexible in what you do year round anyway, right? And like I've got an athlete that lives in Switzerland, and she does cross country skiing, I don't know, 6-7 months out of the year. And so she did it again this year, and has barely done any triathlon training the last month. I mean, we're talking barely. And went out and PR'd her Olympic from last weekend. Like fitness is fitness. So like try to find something that you can do to continue to get better, which is why you got in the sport in the first place, is you're trying to find something to get better.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I can't think of tennis clubs anymore without thinking about Milos from the Seinfeld episode. that just will always crack me up. But yeah, man, what you said is fitness is fitness. And also, I just think about, man, the difference between when I started with you back in 2012 or whatever to now, and the things that, quote unquote fear, or the things that we're afraid of. And, when I started, I mean, the Ironman was the furthest thing from my imagination. There's just no way. Never ran, did some biking, was never a swimmer. I mean, like that, to actually go watch one before I did one was just like, it blew my mind. Right. And now you think about all the way, just kind of that process and what you gain through it. And it's really difficult sometimes to remember, I think. And after I lived in Nashville, and then we went to Chattanooga, and then when I came back, I kind of was hanging out with a friend who I really didn't see much at all during that time. And he's like, dude, you really changed. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you're just like, I can't explain it. And I think really what it was like, I was more open to doing things, trying things that maybe scared me, and they didn't even scare me anymore. It was just sort of like normal shit that you would do. It's like, let's go. It's kind of a byproduct, I think, of doing what we do and training. And, back in the day when going out for a, mile run seemed like a big deal. Now I feel like, even though I haven't been running a ton, if somebody put a gun to my head and said, hey, you need to go run or complete a marathon right now, I could figure out a way, And that's just like, wow, what does that mean? There's things like that. And I think that the challenge becomes sort of is to continue on that journey. in my mind, you know, doing an Ironman was like an incredible feat that, like, how am I going to top this? But so now it's kind of, how do you continue doing that? And I think the little things, like we were just talking about, how we keep going down this route and looking for things that we can help, you know, improve our minds and get off of anxiety and beat fear and stuff like that. Those are the wins. And like you said, you can't rush fitness, but I do think that throughout this process, it does give us that, you know, I always feel like personally, even when I do an Ironman, I feel like I leave a ton on the table. And it's just because I can't negotiate that pain at times. I just think it's like, I think I underachieve on a lot of levels. And it's not just necessarily because I feel like I've trained enough. I just feel like I'm not, I think that's a muscle that is tough to create and build, is being able to go to the well a little bit deeper. And I don't know if that's fear or just like pain management or whatever you want to call it, but you know how it is, man. You're out in a marathon and you know it hurts, or the Ironman marathon, for example. I mean, it hurts, but you know you're not hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And you know you're not injured. You're just in pain. So to me, that's like the inner workings of all this kind of thing too, is like, how do you figure out how to go out and, you know, because the hardest part is always, like, I know I could go out and do like a, you know, a nice 7-mile run or something right now, but the hardest part will be getting out of this chair, getting my shit on, and actually getting out there. But once you get moving, it's on. And that's kind of what's been going on with this little back niggle that I'm dealing with. This sort of like, man, I can't even, like, I bend over to put laundry and it hurts. But once I got out yesterday and rode my bike, it felt great. I just think that there's weird little things in there that I'm always looking at, and what I call, you know, transitions in daily life. How do you get from the chair to on the bike, or, you know, filling the water bottles or whatever? It's those little things that always keep my interest. And I'm always trying to be like, because you can really just snap, you know, Tony Robbins, like, flip a switch and be like, I don't want to do this. Yes, I do. And then you just change your mind and you just do it. It's like, how many of those moments we have every single day? I'll put it off. I'll do it later, whatever the case may be. And then you can get in a habit of getting better at saying, no, just do it now. Put the damn dishes away, or whatever they are. And man, there's just so much in this sport that it just fascinates me. And I think it's really just a great training ground for life.
It is. I mean, and I think you brought up a great point in that usually trying to find the motivation, the momentum you're looking for in one area is often found in another. Right? Like if you're dreading going out for a run or hopping on your bike or going to the pool, you know, yeah, the first thing you do is maybe put your shoes on, just get started. But a lot of times it's making a choice to do something different to kind of gain momentum. And it could be something as small as putting the dishes away, vacuuming the floor, taking the dog for a walk, right? Taking the garbage out, something, cleaning the countertops, whatever it is, you know, putting your laundry away. I know it sounds simple and probably stupid, but it's so true. Like, because you made one choice to something you didn't have to do right that second. And you did it. And so just by the mere fact of doing something, you got into the right mode and started to create a little momentum. So now the choice to go swim or ride or run now is a little bit easier. And I think that's why it's so important when athletes suffer, you know, any kind of a niggle or an injury or anything. Like, it's so important to do something to maintain that momentum, even if it's in a different department. Totally unrelated. It's important to continue to move forward and to find ways to do something. I mean, I know, like, I think it's an interesting topic maybe for a different day of, like, I know for a fact there's many athletes that I've started working with when they've been injured. I know I've got an athlete that I've been working with for 7 or 8 years, and she came to me with a broken leg. And it was all about getting things slowly back to shape. We got another athlete who was terrified. Parents were terrified, very young in college, terrified to train for a 70.3 this year because she basically hasn't been allowed to run for the last 2 years because of stress fractures on and off. Terrified. So what's the game plan? And you get a game plan and you get started. But she was relentless in her focus and motivation to swim and bike. And now we're gearing up for a 70.3 later this year. She's out doing 4 to 5 miles at a time at 8-minute pace. You got another athlete who started working with me a few months ago who was, I think, deep in the 3rd trimester, about 6 weeks from having her, I think, 2nd baby. Next day was up walking after the baby was born. Like little things like that. Like I know we all want to talk about, and I think it's funny we say triathlon related. That's how life is, right? Is to get, and maybe even sometimes getting momentum or keeping it is to find something triathlon related, right? Getting up and choosing to go outside and do landscaping for 2 hours, going to play tennis, playing pickup basketball, going to play soccer, going on your mountain bike, going for a long walk. Like to me, that's triathlon related because you're still gaining fitness. Right. Soccer, you're out there definitely gaining fitness. Right. And you're working on lateral movement. Same with trail running. Like, I think I hate so much like putting everything in a box, and which is what everyone wants to do with everything right now. Right. You have to be this. You can't be both. You got to be this. And that's why, like, when people ask you who you work with, or it's like they say we work with athletes. We work with athletes. We don't work with triathletes. We work with athletes. Some do triathlon, some do other things, right? Because ultimately, what we're training for is the sport of life, which is one long, giant endurance event. That's all we're doing. We're training to endure.
Yep.
And that can be done in a million different ways. Is that choice? Because to me, it's doing something is always, no matter what it is, no matter what department it is, no matter how you want to categorize it and your fitness, or can it be tracked? And like, you're still moving forward. You might be moving forward at a rapid pace, right? If you're really training, but at least you're making movement forward, or you're refusing to have negative movement backwards. So what if you're just standing still with your fitness, right? So what if you're just barely getting enough work in to not lose fitness? You're healthy. It's good for your mind. It's good for your soul. It's good for your body. That work, and it might not seem like you're getting a lot of it, getting a lot out of it because you're doing just enough to not lose fitness. But doing that and being focused on that, having accountability for that, think about the space you're going to be in. Let's say you do it for 3 months. You do just enough to hang in, right? Stay in the ballpark, to tread water, whatever you want to call it. You do just enough to keep that fitness. Think about how much better you're going to feel, already in structure, already in a zone, already committed, already motivated, with better fitness, in a good routine, when it's actually time and either you're ready or life, allows you to be ready, or your injury, your niggle allows you to be ready to start actually training again, versus the choice, the simple choice, the easy choice, the lazy choice that most people make, which is to do absolutely nothing. You do nothing for 3 months. Think about the difference in your inability to do certain things when it is time to come back, and how much slower you're going to feel and be. You're going to be out of all kinds of shape. Let's call it like it is. You're not going to be nearly as healthy either, because what we do allows us to do other things and to not feel certain ways. And I think that's just very underestimated. Like we just don't think through that enough, and how important it is to our overall health to find a way to do something. Who cares what it is? Who cares what you call it? Don't care. I've like there's 2 or 3 guys I see out in the mornings when I go run or walk waffles that are out there rucking. Put on a giant ass vest. I see him every single morning, and I'm like, dude, power to you, man. Like that takes some like next level consistency. And so who cares what it is? Who cares if you want to drop, 2 disciplines, or you need to? You're making, and I'm telling you right now, you're going to make more progress forward than you ever imagined. by getting fit. That's why people always think cross training always refers to like going to the gym. No, cross training is, I think the best cross training for athletes is trail running, mountain biking, gravel rides, basketball, soccer, anything that requires east-west movement that triathletes never get. Like that's the good stuff because it's easily applicable, right? It's not going to the gym and hopping on one leg side to side over a line. Like, give me some real life stuff here because it checks all the boxes. So that's why I think it's so important too for coaches to be smart when you're encouraging and discouraging athletes to do certain things, because it's all propelling us in the right direction. Like don't worry so much about, yes, can you encourage them to make different decisions in, when they do certain training, sure, or cross training, whatever, different sport, different discipline, whatever you want to call it, sure, but don't diminish or discourage athletes to do different things, because a lot of times that's what's going to keep them engaged in the sport of triathlon or the sport that they choose at that time, is to do that and to do something and to keep things fresh. Like that, to me, that you should encourage that because it promotes them being more fit. They're doing extra, they're doing more. And you know what they don't do? They don't look at it as training. Like when I go play tennis, I don't look at it as training.
Yeah.
That's fun. But it's hard. It's not easy. Same with the athletes that go play soccer, ultimate frisbee, or, same thing as like going out, for a group run and you're going at a different pace. Like it's all different. So use those opportunities and embrace those. I got lots of guys that play hockey still. Hell of a workout. All right. So we got to adjust. You don't tell them not to play because they could get hurt. Yes, maybe a month leading up to their big race of the year, maybe tone it down a little bit. Like I had an athlete that's due in Des Moines this weekend who usually plays hockey on Wednesday mornings. And I just said, it's my so it listed as a note, hockey from, whatever, 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., whatever, 2 hours. And I just said, I would prefer if today was total off day, total rest day, like the week up. But last week, have at it, go play hockey. Because I think it does. We need that release. And again, when we have these injuries and these niggles that pop up, like I think a lot of people look for total relief, as in total relief from adhering to a routine or a program. That's not it. Find something different to do, right? And I think we could all, as I was reading through Training Peaks this week or on Monday from over the weekend, we're all reminded of how relative fitness is this time of year when we all go out for our first like deep garage clean or landscaping clean, and then we're sore for like 6 days after 3 hours of yard work, and we're more sore than going out for a 2-hour run.
Right. Yeah, no, that's good, dude. I love what we were talking about, those guys that do ruck. I just think you have to figure out, and you said it kind of, but you enjoy tennis, and you got to figure out things you enjoy. And I'm sure that after a ruck, they just feel solid. They feel good. It's something that gives them that fitness and that all around strength that we're searching for in life. I've always said, as I get older and in my 60s, and it's like, I feel like if I'm not slowing down, I'm getting faster. If I can still do the things, you just keep them. It's kind of a sliding scale for me, but I feel like, that's the goal, right? It's just to stay right there. And we talk about in the ballpark and be able to do shit and oh, sure, I'm game. Let's go for it. I think we underestimate that ability, right? Let's go play a little tennis. I'm not probably in tennis shape, but I could probably go out and do it. Just have and be better off than a lot of people. Like you're saying, you're in probably more fit than most of the people you play tennis with and everything. I love what you said about doing something, create momentum. And, I literally live 20 steps from a lake, the perfect swimming lake. And I've been really trying to get my swim going. I know it's coming, but a lot of times I'll get in my shit and I'll walk down there and I get on the sand and I'm starting to feel it, but this week I've been just jumping in the kayak instead, just because I'm just not quite there mentally or whatever, to kind of, because I have this thing in my head. I'm going to be doing a lot of open water swimming here soon, and I have been, but just not as frequently as I like. But I get in the kayak and I bust out like 20 minutes kind of hard or whatever, 20, 30 minutes. And that's something, right? I can feel my momentum shifting, and I was thinking about, and I don't even know, and I've said this before, but like, all winter I was getting in the lake and it was cold plunge time and all this shit. I'm not certain that it really, I'm sure there's inflammation, reduction benefits, and there's got to be good shit from it. But for me, it was all about doing something, and it was doing something that was kind of hard, but it was manageable because it wasn't, half the day or anything. I just had to really get my head wrapped around the idea of like, okay, shit, now I got to get my breathing right, and then go down there and get in. And when you do it, for me, it was like the quickest way ever to feel amazing. Yeah, that was what it was. So, but getting there was the hard part. And like you're saying, just do something, man. It's like, it's so easy to be, I'm tired, I don't feel like doing anything. I'm trying to get back in shape. We'll go walking or just get on your mountain bike and just cruise around the neighborhood. You don't have to hit the trails or whatever. You just got to sort of figure out a way to chip away at momentum, and slowly but surely it'll come in. But I think you got to enjoy what you're doing. If you try to force feed yourself to do things that don't feel good, that you don't enjoy all the time, that's never going to really end well, I don't think. But there's so many different opportunities to, find something different, like you said, and just do something that maybe will put you, toward the direction that you want to go, and just be patient with it. And it's just amazing to me how you can not feel like doing something, and once you start doing it, you feel great. That feeling, we always forget it. And it's just, it never ceases to amaze me.
Well, I mean, I'll give you I say quick. That's not been very true, this podcast, has it? I'll give you two examples of kind of like what that resonate with me, what you just said. Maybe we can find our way towards the end of a podcast. But one was, I like to think about it this way, right? Does it deter you? And it does to some people. Does it deter you to do a race that's not familiar or not the same as the client and the climate, the environment, the terrain that you currently live in? Think about how restrained you would be if you lived in Florida. And let's be honest, some people choose that. They think that they can't train for hilly races because of where they live, or that they're not comfortable doing flat races because they live in hilly terrain, or they can't do hot races because they live in a cold climate, or they live in a hot climate and there's no way they could do a cold race. Let's be honest, some people are limited in their thinking and their belief that they can be creative and overcome those adverse challenges. But many of you, find a way. I can do big work on the trainer. I can run, if I don't have hills around me, I can get on the treadmill and do undulating terrain. I can do heat prep in the sauna or hot baths. I can immerse myself in cold water to get ready for we do those things. 90% of our athletes, you find a way to do, you go the next step to prepare for, not a perfectly predictable climate, right? Because we never know what Mother Nature to get, but we do our best to check the boxes and cover our bases. Because you generally know what to expect. If you don't get it, you don't get it. We're all in the same boat. So we do that stuff already. And that's the same thing when life happens or injuries happens or niggles happen. Right? Is you need to find a way to adapt, which is what we do anyway. Right? Triathlon training is all about adapting your body to the distance and the demands that's required. And I think a lot of people, especially the farther they get in this journey, like think how much you've adapted in the last 4 or 5, 6 years as an athlete from walking a 14-minute mile down to running in the 8s. or barely making it up the hill, and now you're cruising over it at record speed. That's called adapting. So you are, in fact, adaptable. So let's not act so rigid in how we need perfection so often when we've already proven that we can be adaptable, that we can be moldable, that we are trainable. And it's never been perfect. And as I was thinking about this earlier today, as as we work with, again, we work with endurance athletes. We've got athletes who do triathlon. We got athletes that do 100-mile trail races, 24-hour events, Leadville Mountain Bike 100, English Channel, 10-mile swim. I mean, you name it, and we pretty much do cross-country skiing, the Birkie. We have us to do everything. And within those, there are certain things that so think about this, right? If you are limited in to me, it's not limited in your thinking, it's limited in your ability to problem solve. I was helping an athlete do some research for a swim race next year that's very, very, not very, very, but pretty cold water. They probably feel like 90 degrees to you, Mike, but pretty cold water for the event that they're trying to accomplish. And they won't have any access to any open water leading up to the race, and really any cold water. And so I was doing some research with them and just kind of found some ways that another athlete similar had went through that. And it was really fascinating to listen to how that athlete adapted to swimming in the cold in a hot environment, right? So they didn't limit their thinking and limit their dreams and hopes and goals because of location or a few small restraints. They chose to, as winter came, when they went out to walk their dog, they would put on the least amount of clothing possible to where they would shiver. And they'd shiver some, their body would adapt, and then they'd be fine. They did that to get their body adapted to, and then also did obviously a ton of cold plunging for long periods of time to get your body accustomed to swimming or just being around cold environments and how your body was going to adapt, and completed the event. Not because they lived in a place they could swim in a lake and in 50s, 52 degrees for back-to-back days. Not because they had the perfect setup, but because they had the energy and the willingness and the creativity to find a way. And I think we just lose that in us sometimes, that we are so very quick to, when we see a yellow, we see a stop sign, we see a red. We're in green, we're cruising along, all of a sudden a yellow pops up, we slam on our brakes. We all have ridden with that driver before. I'm like, dude, it's a fucking yellow light. Cruise on through, and it's green. It clicks yellow for one second. They slam on the brakes. I'm like, dude, that was not necessary, right? Trying to stop short. We're seeing yellow. It's not saying stop completely. It's not saying, and this is goal oriented too. It's not saying don't do that race, don't do that event, don't go long, don't race short. Don't, do an event that scares you. What it's saying is just slow down for a minute and figure out a way to get this light back to green and still stay on track. Maybe it might take a little bit longer, but do that. And I think it's a lot of time we see stop and we see can't and we see won't and we see not able to. And then we look for an easier way that's just not fulfilling at all. And I've been thinking so much, almost daily, about the quote we used last week, which is, the magic you're looking for is in the work that you're avoiding. And I think it goes back to that too, is that, we a lot of times will avoid that extra 2 steps to complete a task when because of their hardest steps, but they're the ones to completion. So whether it's a niggle or an injury, or you're scared of a race, or you're coming back from fitness, or from a lack of fitness, or whatever it is, there's a way. And you don't have to look at it all as triathlon training. You just look at it as training for life, training to get fit, training to get healthy. Right? I think I use this phrase with an athlete who's been just kind of really, I would say, just kind of struggling with it. Probably one of the more demanding jobs of anybody that I know, in just the amount of hours that they put in, and and then having some major neck issues and And I think, when you go back and you look at how to be, successful or not successful with things, it comes down to how you decide to approach your journey. And, I broke it down as simply as I possibly could. And I just kind of said something like, I said, we can do this. You can do this. You are a priority. We get healthy. We get healthy enough to exercise. We get healthy enough to exercise and stay exercising. We turn exercising into training. We turn training into more training. And then we get to race. And you have to look at it as a step by step by step by step block, which is, I think, where so many athletes struggle, is they know where they've been, so they want to be teleported back to where they've been before. That ain't going to happen. Ever. You got to work to get back there, and you may not ever get back there, but it's sure as hell not a reason to give up and do nothing.
Sounds good, man. All right.
Wrap it up?
Yeah. I
yeah.
Here.
You got stuff to do. I got stuff to do
no,
too. But
anyway, stay tuned to, I just interviewed one of our coaches, Jeremy Scherer.
The
man, the incomparable Jeremy Scherer. Find out, he lives over there in Michigan. Find out if he's a Michigan man or a Michigan State guy.
Ooh,
also, you can hear about his Everesting journey.
Oh yeah, I know all about that.
We had fun with that, and you might be able to get a little insight on the real estate market.
That's right. Yeah, awesome guy, awesome coach. An awesome C26 athlete too. So check that out. Give it a listen. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. Peruse that coaches tab. Find the one that's right for you. And if you can't, let us help you. And just hit the submit button. We'll help you find the perfect coach. You can rock the rest of the year. And that goes for everyone, whether you're in shape, trying to get in shape, or trying to get back to exercising and injured. We can help navigate, because really, it's all about the journey. That's all I got. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
All right, buddy. See you.
See you, dude.
All right. Welcome in one of our newest coaches, Jeremy Scherer. How you doing today, bud?
Doing good, Mike. How are you?
I'm good, man. You working over there?
I am. Working a little bit this afternoon, absolutely.
How's the housing market?
It's a little bit of an adventure right now. Not enough homes for sale, and they're maybe a little expensive, and interest rates are high, so we're still getting it done, though. It's all good.
All right, cool, man. All right, let's get into it, man. How long have you been around C26?
I have been on the team for about 6 years now as a coached athlete with Robbie.
Okay. And how's that going? Obviously pretty good, or you wouldn't be around. But now you're going to be coaching under the C26 umbrella.
Yeah.
And how you feeling about the coaching side of things, man? You texted me earlier and said you had a new athlete and everything, so must be getting into it.
Yeah, you got it. I'm excited. Things are going well. So I started about 6 years ago with Robbie, and probably like a lot of athletes, I was looking for, some custom coaching, a little direction. I'd been doing it on my own for a while, and I got all that. Robbie laid out a great plan, helped me achieve some goals, improve my fitness, my race times. What I didn't expect and what I did get, which just kind of led me to coaching, is I kind of got this community and this family and this group of friends that I really didn't foresee at all when I kind of started on this venture. So after a few years and a bunch of camps and races and all that stuff, the opportunity came up to start doing some coaching myself, like you said, under the C26 umbrella. So I thought that'd be great. I'd love to kind of give back to the sport and the team and the community, basically just the way I was able to receive a bunch of that support. So yeah, I'm excited to get started on this. Have my first few athletes. Things are going well so far.
That's awesome, man. And yeah, we must have known each other about that long then, right? You've been coming to camp for probably 5 years, right? At least.
Yeah, you got it. I think we probably met first in Chattanooga, probably 70.3 team race there.
Okay.
And then I think you and I, we've probably been to, 5 or 6 run camps together for sure. So yeah, I've known you for a little bit now.
Always a good time. And I got to tell you, man, you're a blast to be around at run camp, man. It's always one of my highlights when you're on the roster. So we have a good time out there. And I think that's really you talk about community, that's really one of my favorites, the run camp. It really kind of brings people together, and there's always a lot of fun to be had on site, never leaving, which is my jam.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I guess the thing that kind of caught me off guard the first time I went, certainly didn't know what to expect, how to do a run camp. And on the podcast, right, we talk about the terrain and the miles and the challenge and all that stuff's true. But I think what's a little bit cooler than that is all the other time when we're not running, the other 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day where you're awake, you're not running, and you're hanging out with these people, right? And you are sharing stories about where you're from, what you've done, what you've been into. And of course, we're all, for the most part, triathletes, runners, et cetera. And, we share war stories and race stories and things like that. But the thing that really got me is I don't think anybody ever one time asked me, what was your time at that race? Or where'd you finish at that race, right? It's not a group of people or a community that's, I don't want to say we're not concerned about your performance. We absolutely are. We want you to do well. But in the end, we want to be around a certain type of person, certain people, build these friendships, build these relationships, right? It's not about, ooh, did you podium at this race? Or, ooh, did I beat your time at that race? Everybody's pulling for each other. Everybody likes to hear each other's successes, their stories, get to know their fellow athletes as people. And I didn't really expect that. I thought it was fantastic. That's why I've been back every year, like you said, for probably 5 years in a row at this point.
Yeah, that's always an amazing piece to me. And I think that the culture that we have just really kind of exposes good people or something. I don't know. It's just like we have all these people come in, and obviously if you've been around for a long time, and I was going to ask you, how the experience as a C26 athlete shaped your coaching and everything. And I suppose that's really what it is, right? Is like what you just said is kind of like you're out to help everybody be their best or whatever, not just necessarily be all beat, like, I don't know. When I think of coaching, sometimes I think of, I hear horror stories about people on the, I've heard of coaches riding along with their athletes and stuff on a bike and thing and yelling, whatever. But what is your style? I mean, I think I kind of know, but why don't you tell people what your style would be interacting with certain athletes that you coach?
Sure. Yeah. So that coaching style, right? I would say as a coach, you need to wear a lot of hats, and that coaching style, for example, that's going to change athlete to athlete. That's going to change day to day and even situation by situation, right? So if I'm coaching Mike, there might be a day where Mike needs me to be a cheerleader and wear that hat, right? And I need to encourage Mike. You got this, man. You can do it. You've been through the training. I know you got it in you. There might be a day where you need that coach that's a dictator, right? And I might need to, I don't want to say come down on you hard, but give you a little kick in the butt, right? Like, hey, Mike, it's time, right? It's time to turn it around, turn it on. We need to get the work done. We need to get going. We need to get motivated. But realistically, a lot of times you're going to be a friend, a therapist, right? A sounding board. So you got to wear all those hats, and you got to be able to interchange those hats with the same athlete day to day, situation to situation, and certainly athlete to athlete. Robbie's done that for me. I know. I think a lot of the coaches on our team see that and realize that and coach the same way. But realistically, right, I'm more interested in coaching the person first, as we say, and the athlete second. You got to build that relationship with a person first, and then let's see what they need as an athlete, and we'll kind of get them down that path too.
Right. Yeah, and you're probably not going to like hearing this, but you actually remind me a lot of me. In the sense, but I mean, like I've always thought of you as kind of a guy who likes to have a good time, but you also have a really competitive side, you know, and I think that can get misconstrued sometimes. And I look at you as pretty much a fun guy, but a straight shooter. So, I mean, you love to have fun, so don't try and deny that, right?
I will not deny that, right? I do like to have a good time. I do like to have fun. And listen, let's be honest, right? We've got life and stress and family and kids and whatever. If we can't have it fun, to what end, right? Right? What's the point, I guess, is my philosophy. So I'm not screwing around all day by any means. I know how to work hard, but like you said, I know how to play hard. I can be super competitive at even silly games we play at run camp that have nothing on the line and they're just for fun and whatever. Yeah, I can get very competitive at that. But again, like you said, I like to make sure we always layer in some fun too, because triathlon shouldn't feel like a job, right? We're all choosing this. It shouldn't feel like something you have to do or need to do. We need to make sure you're enjoying it. We need to make sure you're having fun and you're doing it by choice. Once it starts to feel like a quote unquote job or something you have to do, we're on the wrong path at that point.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you took off your tie for this, so I know you like to have fun, man. You can let your hair down.
That's right.
But also, I've known you to like run up and down a ski hill, 50 times or something crazy? What was that race all about?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Occasionally, I like to participate in some races that are maybe a bad idea. So a lot of people have probably heard of Everesting, right? Which is where you take the elevation of Mount Everest, and then you either do it on a bike or on a run or whatever. And there's a local race here. It's called Midwest Everest, where you can, literally run up and down a ski hill dozens and dozens of times to, get the equivalent of even half the elevation of Mount Everest or the full elevation of Mount Everest over the course of 50 miles or 100 miles. Terrible idea. I did it once. I was texting Robbie in the middle. He made me promise I'll never do it again. Realistically, I want to do it one more time, actually. So like you said, that competitive streak, right? See if I can do it a little bit better. But just a terrible idea. It took me longer than an Ironman. Couldn't move worse than an Ironman. It was just a train wreck.
Wow.
But like I said, maybe I do it again.
Yeah. I don't blame you, dude. I mean, it's like always got a lure to it. So you said locally, and that we should let everybody know would be Michigan. You are the man of Michigan, blue. No, wait.
Hold on now. Back off on that statement. Yeah, I am in Michigan. I'm outside of Grand Rapids, right? Everybody wants to know, is it go blue or go green around here? So I'm a Spartan fan. I'm a State fan. It can be a little bit rough right now with all my U of M friends, but it's all good. Good spirits.
Yeah, right. And you like to do your beach thing too a little bit, right? In the middle of Lake Michigan. You like swimming out there often? Okay.
You know what? Yeah. I just got out for my first open water swim about a week ago. Probably realized I need to put in a few more of those before some races this season. But yeah, we do have a place up north that we enjoy in the summer. So a little more laid back up there. Great scenery, great atmosphere. Enjoy the water, enjoy the sand dunes. So yeah, we try and spend a good amount of time up north over the summer.
Yeah, I definitely got to get over there at some point. Speaking of races, what do you got coming up, man?
I have a local Olympic in, 6 or 8 weeks. Tell you what, I've got a real small local 5K this weekend.
All right.
I think it comes with a free bunch of asparagus at the finish line, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, a little local 5K. I've got an Olympic. I'm going to June camp with the team. I've got Louisville 70.3 with the team, and then I do some guide running with a blind runner, and him and I are going to do Detroit Marathon in the fall, and then run camp in February at this point.
Wow, that guy still trusts you, huh?
The rocky start, but yes, he does trust me. We run twice a week. Things are going great now.
That's awesome, dude. Have you run every street in the, what was that thing you were doing?
Yeah. Website called City Strides.
Okay. Yeah. You got everyone, every
city. Track of your runs. And it'll let you know how many streets you've run and all the cities you run in. So yeah, I've run them all. And the town I live in, the town next door, about 90% of the ones beyond, and the next town over. So I'm working my way out as I run here. So yeah, still knocking them off slowly.
Okay. And did you ever get a hold of? Did you ever knock out 8 Mile Road in Detroit, like we had talked about?
I've yet to run on 8 Mile. Still looking for that vest I can wear while I run, and make sure I'm real safe while I do it. So that one's still on the list.
No, I heard Detroit is really turning around. But how far are you from the city there?
Quite a ways. So I'm on the west side of the state. Yeah, the southwest side of the state. That's obviously southeast side. So that's 250-ish miles, a few hours.
Right. What kind of wins do you like to see with your athletes? I mean, you've been coaching a little bit now. Like, what kind of things kind of fire you up as a coach to see an athlete go through and maybe achieve?
So it depends on the athlete, right? When we have athletes coming in, one of the things we do, right, is we've got a questionnaire, and we kind of ask them, hey, where are you at? What are your goals? What do you struggle with? What do you need help with? And so that's kind of what I'm going to base that on, right? Mm-hmm. So I've got an athlete I talked to just yesterday, and he's got a big open water swimming problem, right? I would call it problem, but it's a big challenge for him, like a lot of people, right? He's an adult onset swimmer, did his first triathlon last year, and he said, I got in the water and that I didn't get pulled out, but he said I panicked, right? It was different, the feeling was different, and I couldn't see in front of me like the pool, and I couldn't touch the bottom, and start getting all these things going through your head. So, for him, that win is when he does his next race and he's done enough training and he's strong enough in the water and all that to where he's going to finish that race and he's going to say, hey, you know what? I overcame that fear, right? I can swim open water and I can do it comfortably and I can maintain a certain pace and get out of the water feeling good and not all anxious and worried and all that stuff. So, those wins are going to be based on a lot of times what the athlete tells me. And then sometimes right in the background, if I see an athlete who comes to us maybe and they don't have that confidence, I think we do get some athletes too that don't necessarily like to identify as an athlete or call themselves an athlete. And eventually over time and consistency, they maybe see and look in the mirror and think, you know what, sure, I'm not running 5 or 6 minutes a mile, but I am an athlete, right? Compared to what 9 out of 10 other Americans are doing with their lives right now, I'm far ahead of all these other people, right? And so you see athletes start to build confidence. It starts to help in other areas of their life, work and family and kids. So that stuff's fun too, when you can see those small changes over time that kind of become big changes also.
Right. Yeah. So, and you have a family and everything, and you're training for a lot of stuff and you're coaching and everything like that. So how do you balance all of that stuff? I know you've written a couple blogs for the website that I've found very helpful. And so, yeah. What about, how do you approach your day, man? As a person, athlete, coach?
Sure. So for me personally,
you texted me at like 6 a.m. today, by the way.
Yeah.
So you're very up and go-getter. Clearly.
That's right. And listen, I'm on Eastern time. I had to wait a couple of hours to text you, right? I knew it was going to be early.
I was like, is it on? Well, I'm still thinking if we're going to do this or not.
Yeah, you were ready to cancel at that point. No, it's off actually. Yeah, so for me, like you said, right, I work, I coach, I have a wife, I've got 3 kids that are super active, super busy. The only way I can operate with my lifestyle and all my commitments is I literally live by a calendar, right? Every day is mapped out. The hours are mapped out, right? Here are my commitments for coaching. Here are my commitments for work. Here are my commitments to my kids' events, and then my workouts, right? And so I live by a calendar. It sounds silly, but I really do. My wife shares the same calendar. We both know what's going on. And, for me personally, weekly headed into a week, usually Sunday nights, my wife and I, we have a conversation. Hey, here's what our week looks like. Here's everything. Here's where it all fits. I look at my workouts coming up in the entire week going forward, make sure they're in spots where the time fits and all that stuff, and do the best I can at that point. Now, that style's not for everybody, right? That style's for me. There are some people who like a loose laid plan, and they like to know, hey, here's the workouts I need to get done this week. They don't have to know the time and the day and things like that. Some people have some more flexibility. So that's fine. That's just how I do it, right? Tons of planning, lots of communication with my wife, with my kids, make sure everybody's on the same page. And then if you have to pivot last minute, you pivot. It is what it is, right? That's life.
Yeah. Yeah, you can wear both the hats. So you have the capability of being really buttoned down, but I know you well enough to know that you're flexible and you can roll with the punches, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You're real good at that. I know that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, buddy. No problem. So I guess what I will see you next will be at camp, right?
Yeah. June camp. Yeah. This month, I guess it's June now.
Jesus, it's like 3 weeks away.
It is. You ready?
I'm not ready. I mean, I am ready, but I just came back from a road trip down to my supposed sprint that never happened because a gentleman on our roster, maybe a coach even, said he had me registered, but I wasn't. So I got shut down.
Ooh. And you couldn't register day before, day of. They weren't having it.
No, I commandeered the race director and had him in a corner and gave him my biggest pitch, and he just shut me down. I was in my gear ready to go, but It was an insurance thing, so I understood it. I mean, race directors is the most thankless job in the world, and the last thing they need is some idiot like me trying to beg my way into a race. So I just dropped it. It was fine. But I did. You
didn't lead with, do you know who I am?
No, I did not do that because he already knew, actually. He knew what was going down there. And so that's especially why I didn't push it because, I don't know. I could never do race director job. I think you could be a race director. I think you might enjoy it, actually.
It's funny you mentioned that. It seems like I was just asked to organize not a triathlon, but just a run up here, this community event. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a go. So come see me in September and ask me how it went.
Yeah. I mean, running a run event, I could almost get behind, but the tri thing just makes me just go crazy thinking about details. And
I agree. I'm with you.
I just walked away, but. Yeah. Okay. So anything else you want to let known to the people out here and about your style and what you want to, what you think, how you think about coaching, I guess,
Yeah, we hit on it a little bit earlier, right?
Okay.
I'm coaching obviously under that C26 umbrella, and the motto, if you will, right, for that team is we want people, as we say all the time, we want them to be happy and healthy, right? And we talked about that. For me, that looks like coaching the person first and the athlete second. And obviously we'll do it at the same time. And depending on which one of those coach hats I need to wear, that's what we'll do that day with each athlete, right, in each situation. I would echo what a few of our other coaches have already said and say that we've got a phenomenal coaching roster at this point, right? So we've had, 3 great coaches for a long time. Adding kind of this new stable of coaches. If anybody's listening or watching and they've got any interest in coaching, there's going to be a good fit for you, right? We have our coaches are split kind of 50-50, male and female, age ranges 20s to 60s, tons of experience, different experiences, racing all sorts of events, all sorts of different stuff. So there's going to be somebody I think that everybody out there will mesh with and get along with and like that coaching style. If that's me, fantastic. I'm happy to help. If that's one of the other dozen coaches we have, I'm happy for that too. I'm excited to bring more athletes into the fold, onto the team, and help them experience the same thing we've all experienced and we preach, right? Which is that community and that friendship and that family that C26 brings.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. Well, it's been a pleasure catching up. We should probably do more of these Zoom calls for pleasure and talk about some crazier stuff offline. But
I agree.
But it's been nice, man. Thanks for doing it. And
you got it.
I look forward to seeing you in June, buddy.
Sounds good. Good to chat with you.
All right, man. We'll see you later.
Yep. Talk to you later.
Yep.